people feel like they're getting their lives back. And I think they are. And so I'm proud and I'm grateful that optimism is rooted in the data, and the data is undeniable.
Governor Eric Holcomb this week sounding optimistic about the state's fight against COVID-19 as more vaccines continue to roll out across the state. We're going to talk about that now with our panel. UIndy political science professor Dr. Laura Wilson with us today, along with 2016 vice chair for the Indiana Trump campaign, Tony Samuel, and former state Democratic Party chair Robin Winston, who also played a key role in the Biden campaign's efforts here in Indiana. Laura, I'll start with you. The governor opening up the vaccine to teachers this week at the direction of the White House. He's also dealing with a legislature that wants to limit some of his emergency powers. We've seen that nationwide, including in states like New York, with everything surrounding Governor Cuomo right now. He's faced multiple controversies here in recent weeks. But how do you see that debate over the governor's powers playing out here in Indiana?
I have to tell you, Dan, it's something I get a little excited about because oftentimes we don't consider constitutional powers and who should be in charge of what roles and responsibilities. But that said, we should always be cautious when considering changing the rules of the game, whether that be through laws or through the Constitution, understanding that these are incredibly unusual circumstances, and I hope circumstances which we never lived through again. If we change what powers the governor has, this would last if it's changed constitutionally or if it's changed via law, for future governors, depending on whatever the circumstances are, regardless of partisanship or balance, anything like that. So as you said, it's something that we do see playing out across the country. I think they're important conversations to have because, quite frankly, oftentimes we just make assumptions about what governors can and should and ought to be able to do, and what legislators can and should and ought to be able to do. And yet I would always exercise and recommend an exercise in caution, because changing the laws in the Constitution this way for an immediate and potentially unusual circumstance may not be in the best interest of the long-term focus for the state.
We'll see how that plays out. Robin, in our town hall this week, you heard a number of Indiana Republicans saying it's time to end the mask mandate. The governor not taking that step just yet, ahead of March Madness here in Indianapolis.
Governor has been sensible all the way through in all of his approaches on this issue. It is not that hard to figure out if you wear a mask, if you socially distance, if you get your shots, you go a long way to help us resolve this issue. So I think part of the issue on gubernatorial control and power is related to some of the things the governor has done about the mask mandate. He's right on. Science is right on, the doctor's right on. We shouldn't change this right now.
Tony, how do you see that debate playing out here in the weeks to come if things do continue to improve as they have been?
Well, that's the good news. Things are improving. We've got a Big Ten tournament here, and we've got an NC2A tournament here coming up right around the corner. We didn't see that coming a month or so ago. And the mask mandate will end in due time. I don't blame folks for getting antsy about it, but the governor is looking at a variety of data, not just one or two factors, and I think that's wise. As far as limiting his powers, the legislature looks at it like they need to have a say. We went months between the time, 8-9 months between the time the crisis started and before they had a voice when the General Assembly reconvened. And look at all of the other states that have really been where there's been an abuse of power by the governor. New York and California come to mind. So there needs to be that discussion. The legislature seems pretty energized, that there will be some change, but then there is the constitutional question. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about the events at the White House this past week. President Biden signing the stimulus bill Thursday after speaking to the nation to mark 1 year since this officially became a global pandemic. Laura, what did you make of the president's remarks this week?
Well, he's setting forth a very ambitious plan. And when he talks about that May 1st deadline, there were clarification points, right? Not everyone has to have had both shots. Not everyone has to have actually had the vaccination, but he wants every eligible adult to be in line at that point. And really making this argument for a federal, I would say, oversight in some ways. So far, states have been largely in control of the distribution in terms of who gets it, where they get it, but really bringing in this idea of federal government and making sure sure that there's some guidelines there. I think, as I said, it's an incredibly ambitious plan because May 1st will be here before we know it. And though things certainly are getting better and there are more vaccinations, this isn't something that's terribly easy.
Yeah.
So what he's laid out here is going to be very difficult to do, but something that obviously he and his administration think will be possible by that May 1st deadline.
Yeah. And Robin, the president plans to keep selling the benefits of this stimulus plan across the country. Other members of the administration doing the same, like you saw there in my interview with Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Well, and they're fanning out around the country because they learned from 2009 that then President Obama had a tremendous plan, but you have to let the American people know how it affects them at the kitchen table, how it affects small businesses, how positive it's going to be. So the president's going to Delaware County, the vice president's moving around the country. Everybody is fanning out to talk about this. This is going to have a discernible impact to benefit our small businesses. We're going to get our country back healthy. We're going to get our country back to work. And it's admirable that the president's doing that.
Tony, as Americans start to get those checks in the mail, even this weekend, is there some concern Republicans will come to regret voting against this?
No, Republicans also need to explain their point of view. There's a reason they voted against it. And one of those reasons is a $600 million going to Nancy Pelosi's hometown of San Francisco for a pet project. Another reason is $2 billion going to prisoners. And another reason is not enough money spent on reopening schools. $118 is the average per student that's in this COVID relief bill, but yet prisoners like the Boston bomber are getting $1,400 checks. That's not right. There was a lot of waste in this, and not to forget that there was $1 trillion left of the $3.2 trillion that's already been doled out from the CARES Act from last year in a couple of different bills that were passed previously. So a lot of waste, and we can't afford that. It would have been nice if Joe Biden, if President Biden wants to talk about unity, there was a lot that he could have done in that regard to give credit to the previous administration, President Trump, for the Operation Warp Speed, which brought us the vaccine in 9 months, and everything that's happening now was put into place because of President Trump's efforts.
Okay, we got to leave it there. Coming up next this Sunday in Focus, the Big Ten tournament here in town this weekend, the NCAA tournament next week. All of it right here in Indiana. We'll hear more about the health and safety plan to keep our city safe next.